So hello everyone. Let's continue with today's article. So for today I'm quite late while uploading this video. Anyway, so not wasting too much of your time, let's continue with the article. The lack of a drug recall law in India. What happens when substandard drugs are indiscriminately distributed in the market? Have there been discussions on implementing a drug recall law in the country? Drug recall: why are pharmaceutical companies resisting a centralized drug recall authority? So what is recall? Recall means होता है याद करना, but I don't know means what does specifically the meaning of recall. Let's find out. Let me write drug recall. Drug recall. What is drug recall? Drug recall. A recall is a voluntary action taken by a company at any time to remove a defective drug product in the market. The list below includes voluntary recalls in which public notification has been. Open this. Okay, a recall is a voluntary action. A drug recall is the most effective way to protect the public from a defective, a potentially harmful product. A recall is voluntary action taken by a company at any time to remove a defective drug from the market. The list below includes voluntary recalls in which public notification has been issued. So any kind of drug which is available in the market and it is a defect product, then that drug has been that then action has been taken by the company to stop selling that product in the market. So this activity or this process is known as drug recall. So these are the questions that has been raised for the article, and let's find out the answer. So I think this article has been written by two writer or two editor. Sorry, not editorial. Dinesh S. Thakur, Prasant Reddy T. Okay, the story so far. On April 25, about a multinational pharmaceutical company published uh, a public notice in newspaper alerting people about a mislabeled batch of medicine that it had inadvertently shipped to the market. While such recalls takes place regularly in the US, we have never witnessed domestic or foreign pharmaceutical companies recall substandards or mislabeled drugs in India. Okay, means inadvertently. Inadvertently. What does it mean? Find out the meaning of inadvertently. Without intentionally or accidentally. Okay, means Abbott is a pharmaceutical multinational company. Okay, and by mistake the company has shipped some wrong products or some wrong drugs product in the market, and that's why the company has given a notice in newspaper to please stop using that drug. Okay, but and the writer also said that this kind of things usually happen in India. Doesn't happen usually in India, but it seems to be happen regularly in the US market. Is there a drug recall law in India? Okay, the drug recall law in India. One of the reasons for the difference in behavior in India and the US is because the law in the latter requires pharmaceutical companies to recall from the market those batches of drug that have failed to meet quality parameters. In India, okay, means one of the reasons for this difference in behavior in India and the US is because the law in the latter requires pharmaceutical companies to recall from the market those batches of drug. Okay, in the US, what usually happen? Look, every drug has been made to meet its specific has made it for a specific purpose. Okay, if some of the drugs are not usually benefiting for that purpose, so in that situation, in that scenario, if the drug has been produced in the US, then those drug has been recalled in the US market. In India, on the other hand, has been mulling the creation of mandatory recall law for substandard drugs since 1976, and yet no law exists that mandates such medicines be removed from the market on this day. Okay, in India on the other hand has been mulling the creation of mandatory recall. Okay, mulling, mulling. What the meaning? Mulling. Think about deeply at length. Okay, means this thought has been given us so much time since 1976, so that we can create a law on this drug recall, but such law has never been existed in India since today. So in 1976, the Consultative Committee, which consists of all the state drug controllers along with senior bureaucrats from the Ministry of Health and the National Drug Regulator, the Central Drug Standard Control Organization, discussed the issue of drug recalls. Okay, in 1976, the Drugs Consultative Committee, which consists of, okay, there is a committee called Drugs Consultative Committee, which handles all the uh, 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 drug controls with the senior bureaucrats from the Ministry of Health. The Central Drug Standard Control Organization discussed the issue of drug recalls. Okay, so these two committees are discussing on this matter. The minutes of this meeting record a discussion on how drugs ordered to be recalled by a state drug controller in one state were found to be on sale in another state. Okay, suppose there is a drug and it has been sold in pan India, and suppose in one state, look, every state has its own law. Okay, so there is not a centralized law regarding a drug recall. Okay, so if in other state there is a uh, drug recall activity, or means any company has recalled that drug, but what happened, there can be a scenario in other state, there might be that that drug has been selling, has been in the market from very long time. Okay, while the meeting resolved to a greater cooperation between various state drug controller to facilitate better coordination, this decision never translated into amending the law to create a legally binding structure to enforce such recalls. Oh my god, very long statement. Okay, so there must be some coordination between the every drug controllers in the various parts of the states. So since then the issue has come repeatedly in regulatory meeting in 1989, 1996, 1998, 2004 and 2007, 2016 and 2018 and 2019, but none of them resulted in amendment to the Drugs and Cosmetics Act to create a mandatory recall mechanism. So most since they have also conducted meeting in the past regarding this matter, but nothing has been resulted. Nothing robust outcome has come from this meeting. In 2012, certain recall guidelines were published by the CDSCO, but they lacked the force of law. So in 2012, they have also given a guideline regarding this law, but they are not so much enforced. Why is there no recall law? No question is there. Why there is no recall law? There are three possible answers to these questions. The first is that drug regulation section of the Union Health Ministry is not up to the task of tackling the complex drug regulatory issues due to a combination of factors including apathy, lack of expertise, and a greater interest in enabling the growth of pharmaceutical industry than protecting the public health. So, the first is the drug regulation section of the Union Health Ministry is not up to the task. Okay. The second possible factors is India's highly fragmented regulatory structure with each state having its own drug regulator. Okay. The first is that the drug regulation section. Look, that Union Health Ministry, there is a drug regulation section, and they are not able to tackle whatever the issue has been raised regarding the complex drugs manufacturing or some means there is no such experts are there. So in the maybe the writer seems to say that meanings to say that there is no so much expert in the health ministry so that they can regulate this complex drugs, they can work on the complex drug. Okay, the second possible factor is India's highly fragmented regulatory structure with each state have its own drug regulator. So every state has its own drug regulator, but despite the fragmentation, drugs manufactured in one state can seamlessly cross borders to be sold in all states around the country. So there is a provision that if the drug has been manufactured in one state, then they can be sold in another state also. To create an effective recall mechanism, the responsibility of recalling drugs has to be centralized. So to effectively use this law, just like drug recall law in India, uh, so we have to make a centralized law, not within the state one. So with one authority wielding the legal power to hold companies liable for failures to recall the drugs from across the country. So there will be a one authority who will have all the powers, and so that all the companies will be abide by them, so that there will be a recalled drugs, so there will be so that the company will able to take actions if by mistakenly they sold a wrong drug in the market. However, both pharmaceutical industry and state drugs regulators have resisted greater centralization of regulatory powers. So generally, what pharmaceutical industry shows reluctance to have a centralized regulator on this drug industry. This opposition has little grounding in logic. If India is single market for drugs, it follows that it should have one regulator. If not, the incompetence of a regulator in one state can lead to adverse effect for patients in other states. The incompetence of regulator in one state can lead to the adverse effect of the patient in other states. The third possible factor is that India's drug regulators are aware of the fact that mandatory drug recall system, which necessarily has to be centered on a system of wide publicity, will bring back to public attention to the state of affairs in India's pharmaceutical industry. What happens when substandard drugs are not recalled? Okay, means now if now the question is there that suppose that a defective drug has been shipped into the market, so what will be its consequences? People, including children, are almost certainly dying or suffering from adverse health events because substandards are not swiftly removed from the market. Look, if even if the substandard drugs has been recalled from the market, so it is impossible to abruptly stop those drugs in the market because it takes some time. Okay, every month dozens of drugs fail random testing in government laboratories. So means most of the drugs are usually fails while testing in the laboratory. Ideally, these drugs will be necessarily recalled in transparent manner with the people being informed of the failures. So there should be some mechanism so that there will be a transparency between the people that which kind of drug has been not been approved in the market to be sold. If this were to actually happen in India, the people would be flooded with alerts on an almost daily basis, which then would increase the pressure on drug regulator to institute extensive reforms. So now the writer is saying that if such kind of mechanism exists in India, then every day people will be available to listen all kinds of warnings regarding the drugs. Like, look, this type of drug has been manufactured for so and so purpose, and now this drug has not been approved in the market because it doesn't qualified for its qualified for its purpose, which then it would increase the pressure on drug regulator to institute extensive reform. So if the bureaucracy intention is to avoid accountability, it might prefer to keep quiet and let substandard drugs, even those when with the dangerous consequences for consumers, circulate in the market. Look, now the writer is saying if even if the officials who are sitting in the drug section of India, drug section in the Union Health Ministry, even if their intention is that there should be no kind of accountability in this department, then there will be some consequences that obviously people will affected from these kind of substandard drugs. This has been this modus operandi for decades, and until recently, when drug failures overseas brought attention to this issue, yet nothing has changed on the ground. Look, most of the we have been talked on this topic on decades since decades, but nothing robust has been created to tackle such an issue. So this was an article, the writers and co-authors of the Truth Spill, the myth of drug regulation in India. Okay, means these two writers, okay, means a very good article on drug recall in India. So that's all for today.